Governor J.B. Pritzker touring the state this week, highlighting the increased funding for K through 12 education, also for higher education, a lot more monetary assistance program grants that are going to be offered up for students looking to go to community college and to four-year universities all across the state. So yesterday he had speakers in Springfield talk about the increased funding for colleges. He was at the University of Illinois Springfield, was able to stop in there and asked him how he plans to, aside from the grants and aside from the increased spending from the state, how can the overall cost of higher education be reduced for everybody? Subsidies, grants, scholarships aside, how can we lower the cost of education across the board in the state of Illinois? Here's Governor J.B. Pritzker responding to my question.
Well, that's a substantial way in which we do it. MAP grants, aim high scholarships. And in fact, it allows the universities to make decisions for themselves about how they're going to use those MAP grants to support the education that they provide at the university. They need to make sure that people are able to pay the tuition so they can increase enrollment at our universities, hugely important. And that leads to more success for our universities, having more people have available to them a college education, whether it's free or reduced costs. What's happening because we're providing so much more money, since I've been in office, MAP grants have gone from $400 million to $700 million, and the amount of money that each person is able to get has increased substantially. And very importantly, no one over the last year was rejected from getting a MAP grant. That's never happened before. Everybody had a MAP grant available to them who was eligible for one and applied for one. That's important. If you want to go to college, we want you to go to college and make it available to you. So we're supporting universities in virtually every way we can. There are some other things that we talk about. The Illinois Innovation Network is another way we're supporting our universities and colleges. We want people to start businesses. We want small businesses in the area to utilize the universities to support their activities. So there are myriad ways in which we're continuing to support higher education.
But then my follow-up question was about a lot of students seem to be going to other states' colleges because it's cheaper to go to other states' schools. What's his response there?
Well, I want to remind you what happened under the previous governor, right? Many of the universities had to raise tuition and accept many more people from out of the state because the state wasn't supporting higher education, wasn't supporting MAP grants, put MAP grants in jeopardy. And the result was that tuition levels went up at many of our universities and above where they are at many other universities. So what's happened as a result of our funding of universities and MAP grants and aim high scholarships is that universities have less pressure now, even in a inflationary environment, to raise tuition. So slowly but surely, by providing more scholarships, more support for students, they're able to pay less to go to a university, even if tuition stays where it is. The amount of money out of their pocket has gone down. That's important. Making college more affordable, you heard me say it a minute ago, hugely important for the future of our state. So that's how we're sort of catching up and beating people, universities in other states, is by making sure we're providing the support and allowing students to make decisions for themselves.
So allowing students to make decisions for themselves, an interesting last little bit there on how to address college costs and attract more students to Illinois for higher education. So the governor's stop in Springfield focused on higher education spending from the state budget, your tax dollars, increased tax dollars going to universities and to MAP grants. But he stopped in Champaign as well yesterday to highlight the budget spending on K through 12 schools. So, he wants to make sure that students have the choice when it comes to college, being able to go to college in Illinois. But what about the Invest in Kids School Scholarship Program? That's the program that allows for private investors to put into a fund and get a 75% tax credit on their income tax for Illinois in exchange for that donation. And those private dollars are then used to give scholarships to families of certain means to send their kid to a school of their choice. So they can choose to go from the public school they feel their school is failing their child, and they could enroll their child using these private funded scholarships to then go to a private school of their choice and to excel in that private school, a choice of the families. Governor J.B. Pritzker in Champaign was asked about why the Invest in Kids scholarship program was not extended before state legislators left Springfield on Saturday morning. And here's the governor's response to that question about what to do with the Invest in Kids scholarship program.
I think that the General Assembly was, hard fought thinking about what it wanted to do with regard to the Invest in Kids program. I think it is certainly possible that between now and the veto session in October and November, that there will be decisions that get made that will have the General Assembly passing that and sending it to my desk. I have said all along that if that's what happens, I will sign that bill. If they decide not to, that's also up to the General Assembly at this point. But I will say that a lot of consideration has been given. And one of the challenges that's been with that program is that there was a huge tax credit. This never gets talked about. 75% of the charitable giving that's supposedly being given into Invest in Kids, 75% of it is then paid back to the people who give the money in taxpayer dollars. Now, I think we should have tax credits that support education and other things in state government. But we also have the federal government willing to cover about 40% of the cost. Why have we created a program in which we're paying for 75% of it and not having the rest of the country essentially pay for 40% of it? This is a problem in the fundamental makeup of it. And I've suggested to the General Assembly, if they decide to renew Invest in Kids, let's alleviate the burden on Illinois taxpayers and make sure that, frankly, as other states do, let's let other states pay in part for the benefit that we get. Tennessee, Texas, Florida, California, New York, they should all pay for a little bit of the charitable giving that these very large givers are making to our schools, as happens in their states.
So again, Governor J.B. Pritzker signaling that he's looking for some changes in the Invest in Kids program, but lawmakers didn't address it before they left for the summer. We'll see if they come back during veto session and take it up, but that could already be after the next school year starts, leaving a lot of families in limbo because the program's set to expire at the end of this year in the middle of a school year. So if parents get the grants and the scholarships and they send their kids, are they only going to be able to send their kids to one semester of school rather than the entire school year? So there's a lot of uncertainty there, and that's sending ripples across for the school choice efforts, because this is the only bit of school choice that Illinois has, is the Invest in Kids school scholarship program. So we'll be watching that space carefully, but again, the governor continues his ongoing tour across the state, highlighting the spending that taxpayers are doing on higher education and K-12 education as well.